What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. Going to give you a very early projected record for the Missouri Tigers. We're going to preview the schedule for 2024. And, this is a team coming off of just a great season. They want to add to that, maybe make the 12-team playoff, maybe get to the SEC championship. We'll see how all that plays out. But it all starts with the schedule. And before we get to that 2024 schedule, let's look back at 2023. Here was the schedule from last year for Missouri, and you can see they played Kansas State in the non-conference, played Memphis in the non-conference. Those were two quality opponents that they played in the non-conference. They also had to play LSU out of the West. So they played one of the top teams out of the West. And then, of course, they play Arkansas every year. They only lost to LSU and Georgia. I mean, this was a great season for Missouri. Won their bowl game, beat Tennessee convincingly, beat Kansas State. Had some really good wins, and they were, again, one of those surprise teams last year. But let's see how the schedule shapes up this year. This is it. And before we go game by game, let's break it down, starting with the non-conference. So a much easier non-conference schedule this season. Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, and on the road at UMass. I don't understand that unless it's like, for recruiting up there or something. That's very odd. Very odd for Missouri to go on the road to play UMass. But Boston College, the only decent team that they play in the non-conference, and I don't expect BC to be great. Lost their head coach, and again, just haven't been that great for a while now. So that shouldn't be too much of a problem for Missouri. You look at the home slate, again, those three non-conference games, and then Vanderbilt, Auburn, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. So you get Vanderbilt, Auburn, and Arkansas, all games where Missouri should be a pretty big favorite, all at home. And then Oklahoma, that'll be probably the most difficult game that they play at home. But again, those are all very winnable games. It's very possible for Missouri to go 8-0 in their home games. You go to the road games now, and it's going to be a little bit tougher. Again, there's UMass. They've got Texas A&M on the road. That could be a pretty difficult matchup there. Alabama, how good are they going to be? Well, it's hard to know right now. And then South Carolina and Mississippi State, they're going to be favored, I think, in both of those games. But Texas A&M and Alabama, those are going to be the tough ones on the road for Missouri this season. But all in all, this schedule's not bad. It's definitely one of the more favorable schedules in the SEC. I haven't done my rankings yet. I'll do that. We'll actually rank all the schedules. And I have a feeling Missouri is going to be right there near the top in terms of easiest schedules, but in the SEC at least. But let's go through this whole schedule now. They'll start with Murray State on August 31st, and then they play Buffalo on September 7th. After that, it's Boston College on September 14th, and then Vanderbilt on September the 21st. So 4 fairly easy games, all at home, and then they get a bye week before their first road game, and that'll be on the road at Texas A&M. So that sets up really well, getting a bye week before that first challenging game there, and then it's UMass on the road. Yes, they do play back-to-back road games, and one of them is UMass, but then it's back home for Auburn on October 19th. Then back on the road on October 26th, on the road at Alabama. That's going to be pretty tough there. Auburn and Alabama back-to-back. And just from Texas A&M to Alabama, you've got 3 road games, and I realize UMass is one of those, but still 3 games away from home. That's going to be the most difficult part of the schedule, probably. Texas A&M on the road, and then Auburn and Alabama in there as well before another bye week. They get their other bye week before playing Oklahoma. That'll be a home game. And then it's back-to-back road games again. South Carolina and Mississippi State, both on the road, back-to-back, and then back home for Arkansas on November 30th. So, it's interesting the way this schedule sets up. I like where the bye weeks are. You get the one before that Texas A&M game. I like, maybe you'd rather switch Oklahoma and Alabama on the schedule, but then you'd have 3 road games in a row. So I understand why they didn't do that. But yeah, still a bye week before Oklahoma. And let's say they lose to Alabama. No shame in losing to Alabama. They can regroup coming off of that loss, get a bye week before Oklahoma, and maybe win out. 11-1 is very possible with this schedule. I like the opponents on the schedule, but I'm not a huge fan of the way it kind of falls in terms of the back-to-back road games. The first bye week I really like, and again, the second one is after Alabama, and maybe that's good. Teams maybe need some time to recover after playing Alabama, although it's going to be a different team this year. So yeah, you got 3 out of 4 games on the road in October, back-to-back road games in November. That's really the only thing to complain about. And I would like to complain about one thing that the SEC did here. I really felt like Missouri and Oklahoma should be that game at the end of the season. I felt like Missouri and Oklahoma should be the final game of the season, and they should bring back Arkansas and LSU for the final game of the season. I don't know why they did that. But they're leaving Missouri, Arkansas. I guess it's kind of turned into a rivalry, and I guess that's what they're going to stick with. But that has nothing to do with me from a Missouri perspective, just as an SEC fan perspective. I wish they had changed that. But anyways, this is the schedule for 2024. Again, kind of tough in some of the parts of the ways that it sets up. But as far as the opponents, Missouri has a very favorable schedule compared to some of the other teams in the SEC. Here were the projections from 2023, and you can see Missouri blew them away, going 10-2. Our projection had them at 6-6. My prediction was 6-6, and there was a time I can even remember back, or maybe around this time last year, seeing some of those early predictions. I saw some of them having Missouri like 4-8, 5-7. It wasn't until later a lot of people started kind of hyping this team up a little bit and starting to believe they could actually be pretty good. And of course, they had a great season at 10-2. Athlon also had them at 6-6. The over/under was at 6.5. So this team was not projected to go anywhere near 10-2. But let's take a look at those projections for this year. Again, here's the schedule. This is the scale that we use. If it is less than 20 over 80, those are games where I think the spread will be 17 plus points, almost guaranteed wins. 20-29, 71-80 games where I think the spread will be double digits, 10-16, maybe in that range. 30-39, 61-70. Those are games where I think the spread will be about a touchdown, 6, 7, 8, 9 points, and then your 50-50 games will stay in the white. Those are games where I think the spread will be 5 or less, kind of in that range. But it's really not about the spreads. This is just a formula that we use. We have all the teams in the tiers, and we have a tier system that we use to get this formula, to get this projection. So we'll start with the easier games for Missouri. And again, this is not a prediction. This is simply a projection based off the schedule. You've got 4 pretty easy wins there: Murray State, Buffalo, Vanderbilt, and UMass. And if you're wondering, I have Missouri as a Tier 2 team. So they go into this formula as a Tier 2 team. And so you've got 4 easy wins. So, for example, if they were a Tier 1 team, Boston College would be in the green. Arkansas would be in the green. So putting them in Tier 2, they might be a Tier 1 team at this point. It's just hard to say. And again, those 4 games right there should be pretty easy wins, and they should be favored by a good bit. All right, then we've got Boston College and Arkansas. And again, because they're a Tier 2 team, these games are in the blue, 71-80%, meaning I think Missouri, and again, it's not necessarily about the spread, but it does kind of work out this way. I think Missouri will be favored by a couple of touchdowns in these 2 games, maybe 13, 14 points. Arkansas seems to always be close, though, so I don't know what's going to happen in that one. But I do think they'll be a clear favorite in both of these games. Maybe it's closer to 10 points, but they should be favored, again, by double digits in both of those matchups. And then you've got Auburn, South Carolina, and Mississippi State, the latter 2 on the road. I think Missouri will be about a touchdown favorite in these 3 games. Auburn, how good will they be? And that's kind of a tricky one. We'll see how good that team is. Some people expect them to be a lot better this year. Then you've got South Carolina and Mississippi State also on the road. But Missouri should clearly be a better team than both of those 2, so I think they will be favored by 6 or 7, maybe 8 points in those 2 matchups as well. So 3 games that they be clear favorites, but they could lose. It wouldn't be shocking to see them lose one of those games. And then you've got Alabama. I think that's the one game where they're going to be clearly an underdog. I think they, especially on the road, they're probably going to be a slight underdog, 6 or 7 points in that one. Not a ton, but they should be. Again, Alabama, if Alabama is as good as we expect them, if they're still one of those top teams, they may not be as good as they have been in the past, but still, there's a lot of talent on that team. They've got a head coach that just went to a national championship. So as of right now, I still think Alabama's a top 10 team, and so that one will be tough. And again, that's a tough place to play. And then you've got Texas A&M and Oklahoma. A&M on the road, Oklahoma at home. These, to me, are the 50-50 games. These are the games that could go either way. It's hard to say on Texas A&M because it's on the road. A&M might be favored by a point or 2, but maybe not. Maybe Missouri's favored by a field goal there, and I think Missouri will be favored by about a field goal against Oklahoma at home. So they might be favored in both of those games, and if they are, that means they'll be favored in 11 of their 12 games, which again means it's not crazy to think this team could go 11-1 this year and build off of that 10-2 from last year. So what's the projection? Well, we plug all of this into our formula, and we get a projection of 9-3, and they were very close to being 10-2, but it did come out 9-3. I think it might have even been like 9.4. I can't remember the exact number, but very close to 10-2, but instead 9-3, which would tell us that, you know, between Texas A&M, Auburn, Alabama, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Mississippi State, let's just say those 6 games, they split those 6 games, and I realize they're favored in 3 of them for sure, but that's just kind of the way it works out, and who knows, maybe they even lose to Boston College or Arkansas. However you get there, you can get to 9-3, but like I said, they were more likely to go 10-2 than 8-4, and they weren't too far away from being at 10-2 in their projection. So another really good year for Missouri, projected to finish just a little bit under what they were last year, but that's not my prediction. I haven't given my prediction yet, but I think it'll be at least 9-3. I wouldn't be surprised if I wind up at 10-2, maybe 11-1. Who knows? Missouri, they surprised us last year. Can they do it again? Can they maybe make a run in the SEC for the SEC championship? I think they're in a really good spot to get to the 12-team playoff. If they can finish 10-2, they should be there. But that's an early projection on Missouri. What are your thoughts? What's your early projection on this team? Let me know down in the comments below.